A tram slammed by a fire truck in a direct hit on Pitt Street. Tonight, commuter chaos around Central Station. Crazed killers on the run after a random murder spree through remote Canada. A major boost to pensions and welfare payments for millions of Australians. Sydney tourists stranded as flights in and out of Bali are cancelled. It's finals time in the NRL, but will the Rabbitohs captain be fit to face the Roosters? And Nick Kyrgios plays one of the most bizarre points in US Open history on his way to an impressive victory.
This is 9 News with Peter Overton.
Good evening. A fire truck and tram have collided near Central Station, injuring several people and bringing the city to a standstill. The crash unfolding in front of shocked onlookers, one of which happened to catch the entire drama on camera.
Eden Jong leisurely walking along one of Sydney's busiest intersections. Sirens are heard in the distance. A truck whizzes down Pitt Street at Haymarket. Then out of nowhere, this. An explosion of shattered glass and metal buckling under pressure. The tram derails, forced off its tracks in an almighty push as people rush to the scene.
Holy!
An office worker captures it from above. Down below, it's chaos.
Oh my God. Holy! Thankfully, there was no one in the way. If we were on the other side, we would have died.
A passenger is carried out of the tram on a stretcher. A 70-year-old woman treated for chest injuries, while a man in his 40s received minor injuries. Caught up in the mayhem, firefighters in the cabin during the moment of impact.
Holy!
2 officers from New South Wales Fire and Rescue were also treated for shock. And I understand as a precaution, one of the officers has been taken to hospital as well.
They had been responding to an automated alarm nearby on Dixon Street.
They got out. They seemed a little bit shaken off by the accident, but they did just fine.
The crash causing traffic diversions and delays, while also shutting down part of the light rail network.
We apologise for inconvenience. Thank you for your patience.
It's taken almost 2 hours to work out what to do with the light rail tram as investigators look through security footage. An initial plan to shift the tram proved unsuccessful. The roadblock staying in force. Vicky Jardim, 9 News.
All right, let's go live to Sophie Walsh, who's at the scene for us this evening. Sophie, the wreckage is still causing traffic delays tonight.
Yes, Pete, but in the last few minutes they have managed to lift that tram back onto the tracks. They still need to work out whether it is drivable or whether it needs to be towed, so it will be a lengthy process. As for the intersection, it is still partially closed, but a few lanes have reopened, but it is slow going. I would avoid it if you can. As for the light rail services, they're still not running between Central and Circular Quay. If you need to get to those places, the advice is jump on a train or walk. Pete?
Sophie, thank you. Tonight, a desperate hunt for 2 men believed to be behind a stabbing spree in regional Canada. There are 13 crime scenes and 10 victims, making it one of the nation's deadliest mass killings in recent history.
Crime scenes scattered in remote Canadian communities.
We have 10 confirmed deceased individuals.
And there were dozens injured. Some airlifted to hospital. Behind the murderous stabbing spree, these men, and they're on the run.
The 2 suspects are Damien Sanderson and Miles Sanderson.
Miles has been wanted by police for at least 5 months. Much of the province Saskatchewan was put on what they call critical alert. Residents ordered to stay indoors.
Do not leave a secure location. Use caution allowing others into your residence. Do not approach suspicious persons.
The first victims were located in the Indigenous community of James Smith Clean Nation and the nearby town of Weldon.
Some of the victims have been targeted by the suspect and others have been attacked randomly.
This resident unknowingly crossed paths with one of the killers who apparently was injured and needed help.
This is not a good guy because he's running away when we offered to help him. So I went in and called the police, and within about 10 minutes, the police were here.
Canada's Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has been monitoring the events. I am shocked and devastated by the horrific attacks today, he said, and promised those responsible must be fully brought to justice. What prompted the men to carry out one of the deadliest mass killings in modern Canadian history is unclear. Tonight, The priority is to hunt them down.
If Damien and Miles are listening or receive this information, I would ask that they turn themselves into police immediately.
They're believed to be in a black Nissan SUV, and police concede they could be anywhere. In the United States, Jonathan Kersley, 9 News.
Pensions are set to jump by a record amount on September 20, driven up by the highest inflation in 30 years. The Albanese government is keen to talk up the increase in benefits, but is not bowing to calls to extend the fuel tax relief beyond the end of the month.
High inflation causes high anxiety in governments.
The cost of some of the essentials that Australians just can't do without are going through the roof.
One essential is petrol.
Australian households are at very high pressure paying at the bowser currently. It is a global phenomenon.
Despite the 22 cent a litre cut in the fuel excise, the competition watchdog found petrol prices hit 14-year highs in the 3 months to June, averaging $1.88 a litre in the 5 largest capital cities, up by 6 cents a litre on the March quarter. It was the 6th consecutive quarter of price hikes. The price will spike again when the full fuel tax returns at the end of the month.
If it's going to go up 25 cents, those families out there can't afford it.
Labor won't continue the fuel tax holiday, and today it was keen to highlight the routine rise in government benefits in line with inflation that will kick in on September the 20th.
This is an important step to attack the cost of living pressures.
This is the standard indexation of pensions and allowances.
Automatic inflation adjustments will drive up benefits for 4.7 million Australians. The age and disability pensions and carer payments will all rise by $38.90 a fortnight for singles and $58.80 for couples. And the job seeker payment for singles without children will lift by $25.70 a fortnight to $677.20.
Grateful for anything that we can get, but it doesn't really go far because with the new increases comes the extra rise in prices.
The Reserve Bank Board meets tomorrow and households are bracing for another hit.
The market expectations are for another increase, and that will be an additional cost on people who are paying off a mortgage.
OK, let's bring in Nine's political editor, Chris Yeawman. Chris, good evening. The government is certainly flying high in the polls. How much of a threat are living costs to that?
A big one, Pete. The government's done well so far, but so far it hasn't had to do anything hard. The longer prices outpace wages, the more pain will be felt in the community and the harder governing will become. Government benefits rose by a record amount today because inflation is at a 30-year high. That will linger into next year, and there's every chance that real wages will not rise in the next 3 years. High wholesale power prices and massive transmission builds to support more renewable energy will drive retail power prices higher. So the government can be well pleased with its first 100 days, Pete, but it's the next 1,000 that will count.
Yes, Chris, thank you. Hundreds of Australians remain stranded in Bali amid a series of last-minute Jetstar cancellations. Tired and frustrated families have missed work, school, weddings, even funerals, as planes remain on the tarmac because of maintenance problems.
The only seats for these travellers were around the baggage carousel at Jetstar, Melbourne to Bali, Saturday night. Delayed and delayed again, then cancelled. 3 hours on.
They can't leave people in limbo. Like, there were people who were going to weddings.
Planes grounded for maintenance. Carmel Centofanti won't accept the excuse.
Would I fly Jetstar again? No.
9 News understands Jetstar's battling a shortage of engineers, meaning they can't keep up with their own flight offers. At Denpasar Airport, cancelled flight after cancelled flight.
We were meant to fly out yesterday.
Hoping to find out soon if we can get on a flight tonight to get home. We've been trying to call them and can't get through.
Thousands impacted, 200 still stranded.
The only way we could get home was booking a flight to Sydney, with a 4-hour delay on the 4th of September.
That got cancelled too.
And we've missed funerals, so it's been a very stressful time over here.
After 3 grounded flights in a week, Dominic Buick and family lost faith.
It cost us $3,600 for the flights with Virgin. And, our accommodation that we've had to extend, it's not cheap.
And it's not just Bali. Affected Jetstar passengers venting online from Japan, Thailand and New Zealand. The common theme, it was last minute. This reaction says it all.
We would like to sincerely apologise for the inconvenience and frustration caused.
But for many, an apology just doesn't cut it. The planes will be fixed, though the damage to the brand could very well be permanent.
I would not fly Jetstar or Qantas again.
Jetstar blaming just about everything.
A lightning strike, a bird strike, an item taxied over on the way up to the runway.
Adam Hegarty, 9 News.
The rail union is holding to its promise of no pain for passengers this week, but is refusing the government's demand to close Opal gates. The Employee Relations Minister had threatened to renege on making modifications to the new intercity fleet if station staff continued the action past Friday. The deadline came and went, but the government is yet to tear up the deal.
I've always thought it was an empty threat because I understand the Fair Work Act and I know how long it takes to get that to happen.
What changed from that 5 p.m. deadline?
Well, they made the application to continue bargaining. Now, we will obviously, that starts tomorrow.
Fair Work will hear from both sides tomorrow. Commuters have been promised peace on the network for the next fortnight. The NRL has been forced to apologise for a glitch which blocked Rabbitohs fans from accessing tickets for Friday's elimination final against arch rivals the Roosters at the new Allianz Stadium. South members were provided the wrong code for pre-sale tickets, resulting in thousands of their supporters missing out, while Roosters fans snapped up the extra seats for the sellout match. OK, we have breaking news. Let's go straight to Perisher Valley, where a major incident has been declared. 9 News reporter Sophie Upcroft is there for us. Sophie, as we understand it, children have been injured in a bus crash.
As we go to air, as you can see, this bus behind me has crashed on Kosciuszko Road between Perisher and Jindabyne around half an hour ago. We understand that there was a school group on board and that among the injured are 6 children and 3 adults. They are all conscious and breathing, and they are suffering a range of injuries from broken collarbones to broken legs, but thankfully none appear to at these.
OK, Sophie, we'll leave it there. Those pictures coming in from Perisher Valley. 3 adults, 6 children injured in this bus crash, but not seriously as we understand it. Sophie Upcroft, thank you for reporting to us live from the scene. OK, the UK's next Prime Minister is set to be announced today when the Tory party finally decides who will replace Boris Johnson. Nine's Kari-Anne Greenbank is at Westminster for us. Kari, is Liz Truss still expected to win?
Well, Pete, Liz Truss is still the clear favourite, according to internal polling. Rishi Sunak still hoping those polls are wrong. Well, we'll be finding out in just over 3 hours when the results of who will be replacing Boris Johnson as the new Prime Minister are going to be announced right here at Westminster. Now, it has been a pretty brutal campaign between the two contenders up until this point, both sides regularly attacking each other's policies. Liz Truss with some big promises. She's promising billions of pounds in tax cuts. Rishi Sunak saying that he won't be cutting tax until inflation goes down. But whoever wins the ballot will be formally appointed to the position of new Prime Minister by the Queen tomorrow, in a break from tradition that will be happening at Balmoral Castle instead of Buckingham Palace due to the Queen's mobility issues. And Pete, the new Prime Minister, whoever it is, will then set about the task of appointing their new ministers to Cabinet.
All right, Kari, we'll leave you at Westminster and head to Manchester, where preparations are underway to welcome Prince Harry and Meghan ahead of a global youth summit. Nine's Tracy Vo is there for us. Tracy, Meghan will soon take centre stage.
Indeed, Pete, this will be the first public speech for Meghan on UK soil since quitting the royal family. She'll be delivering a keynote speech at the opening ceremony for the One Young World Summit, a youth conference here in Manchester, and that'll focus on gender equality. From here, the couple would then jet off to Germany to mark 1 year until the Invictus Games. Then they will return to the UK later in the week to attend an awards ceremony in London for an organisation that helps seriously ill children and their families. As for a reunion with Prince Harry's family, that is highly unlikely. We understand that Prince Charles has in fact extended an invitation for the couple to stay with him on Balmoral, but that has so far been declined. As for their first official stop here in Manchester, Pete, the building behind me is slowly being set up in anticipation for the couple's arrival.
Tracy Vo in Manchester, thank you. The push to introduce a Lynn's Law in honour of murdered mother Lynette Dawson is gathering steam. A former nanny of the family starting an online petition to mandate no body, no parole legislation in New South Wales. So far it's been signed by more than 500 people. Chris Dawson maintains his innocence despite being convicted of killing his wife, whose remains have never been found. With new road networks, underground subway-style trains and 2 light rail lines, the way we move through Sydney has dramatically changed in the past decade. But a fresh report today warns the government's project pipeline isn't sustainable, suggesting drivers should be slugged a tax to force our habits to change.
Australia's biggest city has been undergoing the nation's biggest build.
Transport is on a journey of evolution.
A list of construction achievements the government loves to revisit.
We're building 30-minute cities, 15-minute neighbourhoods.
But today the Premier was forced to look forward as a new future transport strategy declared building our way out of congestion is not sustainable. Instead, it says we need to better use existing assets.
It's about ensuring that train stations in the future are destinations.
Hubs where passengers can run errands and transition between modes, designed to discourage people from getting behind the wheel.
About 2 million trips every day in Sydney alone by motor vehicle are less than 2 kilometres.
The document focuses heavily on reducing gridlock and suggests the government consider congestion charges in a bid to steer driver behaviour. The Premier today ruled out a London-style CBD congestion tax, but warned a road user charge will be phased in through the uptake of electric cars.
As we move into a future of electric vehicles, then naturally you will move to a system like that.
From 2027, drivers of EVs will pay a tax of 2.5 cents for every kilometre they drive in lieu of the fuel excise on petrol cars. And with the push for a fast transition to a cleaner future, we could all be slugged sooner rather than later. Liz Daniels, 9 News.
Well, it's been a busy opening 16 minutes to the news. Let's pause for a moment and check in on the weather. Good evening, Amber.
Good evening to you, Pete. After some showers overnight, today has been partly cloudy, a few sprinkles of rain and southerly winds picking up this afternoon. A pod of dolphins spotted catching waves at Bondi today. A paddleboarder finding himself in the middle of at least a dozen as they played in the water. After a low of 9 degrees, the city reached a top of 18 today, but that felt closer to 12 degrees with the wind chill. Our west dipping to just below 6 degrees this morning before hitting 21. That is 2 degrees colder than average. But tomorrow is going to be even cooler than today, and we could also see a few showers. I'll be back with the full forecast a little later, Pete.
Amber, thank you. Sydney travellers, would you pay extra for this? Making sure no one sits next to you on your flight. Ahead, details of the new program and how much it will cost. A daylight robbery plays out on a New York street, but what you hear in this video is also unbelievable. One of the last remaining COVID mandates coming to an end. And thrill seekers in a terrifying plunge when their ride malfunctions and crashes to earth.